Hey everybody, Chris from HeyFreshman.com here, and today I'm going to be giving you some travel tips for your very first day abroad. Whether you're living abroad, studying abroad, these are tips that will help you out for your very first day in a foreign country. So these are tips that are going to help you out from day one when you arrive in a foreign country. I think the first thing to point out though is that I'm in the country of France. Wherever you're going, things might be different, but hopefully these same tips will help you out. Alright, so you've made it to your foreign country, and it's the first morning, you're ready to go, but chances are from the flight you've got a lot of stuff that you need to recharge and things like that. So we simply just plug it into the outlet. But if you look closely here, there's a problem. This plug doesn't work with this outlet. It only has two prongs. Now, wherever you go in the world, outlets are different, but the point of the story here is if you're going abroad, make sure you have all the right connectors. Voltage varies across the world. In the United States, we're used to 110 volts coming out of a plug, and in other countries, it's different. You're going to need an adapter. Now these things, depending on where you buy them, will cost you anywhere from $1 to maybe about $5, maybe even $10 if you get a really fancy one. But all it does is simply fit over the plug so that now, once you've got it, it can actually use your US plug in a foreign country. The other problem though is that this isn't always going to work. If you just use an adapter, again remember that the voltage could be much higher than we're used to in the United States. And so what you're going to need to do is before plugging things in, you're going to need to consult the back of your electronics. Usually on the plug or on the device itself there'll be a bunch of information. Lots of information on here. And somewhere on here, and this one specifically, this is the information we're looking for. Okay, it's very small, it's going to be blurred, but this tells me that this device, this is actually for a laptop computer, it says it has a range of voltages it'll work at, ranging from 100 to 240 volts. That's a good range. That pretty much means that any voltage coming into this, it's going to regulate, and it'll work just fine wherever you take it, assuming your plug will fit in the wall. But on some items, for instance, I had a pair of computer speakers that only allowed 140 volts of electricity. And with an adapter, I plugged them into the wall and basically fried them. So if your item that you need to use, that you bring from one country to another, only has a specific voltage it works at, you're going to need something like this. It's a transformer, and it regulates the voltage coming through it. Make sure that 240 volts, which is way too much for most US items coming through the wall, doesn't burn out your speakers or burn out whatever electronic items you're using. Now, another problem you're going to have is when you're looking for things on the internet. If you're doing a Google search, you might get the actual country's website for Google, which could be in a foreign language. For instance, here, when I started Googling things, it was in Google France. And that can be helpful at times if you perhaps want to get something delivered, but I wanted to read the news or read a US website, and it's not going to automatically go to that. So one thing to remember is that when you're searching for things on Google from your first day abroad, remember /NCR, and that stands for No Country Redirect. That'll bring you back. Wherever you're at, Google is automatically going to sync up to that country. But if you want it for your home country, just remember to put in /NCR, and that will keep everything consistent with what you're used to. And then later, as you learn the language, you can go and you can look at the actual foreign country's website. Another thing to talk about is that when you are using a computer abroad, there can be foreign characters or symbols that you're not used to using. So it's really important to find, I use a PC, go into your control panel or whatever your settings are on a Mac and find your keyboard options. And you want to set it to US International. And that makes it so that if you hold down Alt or if you hold down Shift, you can actually type in foreign symbols easier. It's really, just as a heads up, if you go to a foreign country, their keyboard symbols are going to be a lot different from yours, even if they're in an alphabet that you're used to. In Spain, there's an enye on the keyboard. In France, there's a few extra symbols on the keyboard, and the letters are mixed up. The actual home row that you would normally use is switched around. So with whatever keyboard you're used to using, if you're in the US, get it set to US international setting, and that will make it so that you can actually type and use foreign characters. Another thing to talk about here is that when you do get to your host country, make sure that even when you start traveling to your host country, you should be sleeping when they sleep. And that's not an easy thing to do because most of us can't control when our flights are. But when you are in your host country, if it's midnight there, try and get to sleep as fast as possible. If you can sleep on the plane, do that. If your host country is sleeping, do so as well, because it's going to help you to get better adjusted. I don't think there's a real trick to defeating jet lag, but that can really help.